Carissa Miller, and I am attending here today from Floyd County, Indiana. I grew up in a small town with a population of 85 that is plagued with poverty, food insecurity, housing insecurity, and substance misuse. Growing up, if we had electricity and water in the same month, it was a good month. I'm here today because I've experienced firsthand what it looks like when the state criminalizes poverty. I have seen how this has broken up my family and countless other families across the state. I became a social worker because I wanted to lead changes in the world for my community, family, and friends. I became a Hoosier Action leader because I want my children and our children to grow up in the best possible Indiana.
Hello, my name is Tamara Harris. I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana area. I'm also a leader in Hoosier Action, as well as a community leader. I have a non-for-profit organization for foster families as well. I'm here because of families like yours as well as mine. We've all had the same struggles and issues, and we're going to be discussing on today, from housing to child care to overdose and criminal justice. So I would like for you all to be paying attention to the stories and all the other testimonies that are coming here today after me, and just understand that we are all struggling together. We are all having the same crisis, and that I will also be explaining why I'm here on behalf of a close friend of mine who is serving a life sentence for as a nonviolent first-time offender. He, as of today, with the new laws in 2000s, he would no longer be still sitting there in a prison. But because he was sentenced in 1990s, he is still sitting there. So that lets me know, and everyone else here today in support of us, that our justice system is broken. So today we will be sharing stories like these to get the attention of our community. No matter what we look like or where we're from, Hoosiers want our families to be safe. Our violence and our voices needs to be heard, and our rights to be respected. But some politicians have spent the 2022 session trying to divide and scare us by proposing policies like HB 1300. A bill to end charitable bail. We stand here today united, and urban and small town families across the states like ours, and our voices in oppositions to HB 1300 and other bills that will tear Hoosier families apart. We're calling on Indiana General Assembly to drop the HB 1300 and HB 1134, and instead put Hoosier families first.
We are member leaders of Hoosier Action, a 5-year nonpartisan group dedicated to improving the lives of Hoosier families. We have members in all 50 Senate state seats. And leading up to this session, we had over 10,000 conversations with our neighbors. What we learned is that Hoosier families know what we need to stay safe. We need to live in communities where people of every color and every background have safe housing, quality child care, great schools, pathways to recovery, and where we address problems with proven solutions. We need social support instead of locking people up for being poor or struggling with substance abuse. Today, we are joined by over 50 families in more than 50 different counties who will share their stories about how our families have been torn apart by our state's policies and what we need from our legislature to thrive.
The Indiana General Assembly had the opportunity to deliver what our families needed this session. But instead of putting Hoosier families first, some powerful politicians at the Statehouse put their wealthy corporate donors first, favoring the profits of big out-of-state landlords and the predators of bail bond industries over the lives of our families. Bills which would have expanded access to child care, destigmatize substance under disorder, and ensure safe housing for Hoosiers. Renters were met with the inaction and indifference. They then used bills like HB 1300 to try to divide and distract us by blaming those struggling the most for problems caused by wealthy corporations and politicians they pay.
Let's be clear. HB 1300 will not keep Hoosier families safe. It will tear Hoosier families apart. HB 1300 is a bill written by and for the predatory bail bonds industry so that they can have a monopoly on a market which exchanges cash for freedom. My own sister sat in jail for 5 months without necessary psychiatric care because our family was unable to afford her bond.
We're urging legislations to stop HB 1300 and listen to Hoosier families. We'll now hear from 5 Hoosiers from across the state who will share how their families have been impacted by inaction or housing, child care, and the overdose crisis, and how bills like HB 1300 and HB 1134 threaten to further hurt Hoosier families by undermining our schools and teachers and by increasing the disparities of our justice system.
I'm Chuck Thralley, a member of Hoosier Action, a lifelong Hoosier, and a resident of Morgan County for 35 years. Spending many years as a librarian, I encountered and tried to serve many of the most vulnerable in our county. The Morgan County chapter has been most focused on environmental issues due to the presence of toxic plumes affecting the water supply and posing the danger of vapor intrusion into homes. We raised our children on the edge of a Superfund plume in downtown Martinsville, and our grandson still lives a few blocks from it. I mentioned to emphasize that I take this issue personally. My wife and I now live in rural Morgan County, where forever chemicals known as PFAS are well present in our water supply from industrial sites upstream. Again, I take this personally. Our district's representative, Peggy Mayfield, has introduced 2 bills addressing contamination issues, one in each of the last 2 sessions. We applaud those efforts, and we were saddened that both were buried in the committee process. But I was also disappointed that my representative introduced one bill, HB 1300, which among other things restricts the ability of nonprofit community and bail funds to pay bail on behalf of someone arrested for a crime. I have volunteered with Courtside, a ministry outreach which offers to pray with people entering our county court. I have shared the anxiety people bring with them and feel empathy for many of the stories they have shared. I have spoken with many other people of faith, working in prison outreach, and have met young people in faith-based diversion programs whose lives were changed by the compassion and care they experienced in the faith community. I also take this issue personally. Limiting the options of charitable and faith-based programs to offer assistance to people who have been accused but not convicted, along with amendments limiting discretion available to local judges, seems to worsen the inequities the poor may face in our criminal justice system. I would encourage you to email, call, or tweet your state senator today to tell them to vote no on HB 1300.
Hello, my name is Caleb Sarchone. I am a small business owner. I live and work in Monroe County, and I serve many rural areas and suburbs in southern Indiana. I have a deep respect for the traditional values that I believe make this state great, like hard work, taking care of each other and our families. I'm also a recovering drug user. If I had been criminalized for my choices, I would not be standing here today. If I had not found the fellowship, the faith, and the community that I have today, then I could easily be a statistic. In 2021, we saw a 33% increase in overdoses in our state, and more than 100,000 Americans lost their lives nationwide. Instead of being treated for a disease, these citizens were criminalized. They had to suffer in silence under the threat of incarceration and losing their lives and liberty and freedom until the day that they died. Although I am lucky to be in recovery, my best friend is not. On February 7th, 2021, Michael Carson died from a fentanyl overdose. He was raised in a Catholic home. His parents are professors at a local college. He was a wonderful chef and an even better friend. Despite all of this, he struggled with substance use his whole life. In 2016, he was incarcerated. In prison, he was introduced to heroin. The system failed him, and his addiction became much worse during his incarceration until it ultimately killed him. Stories like this are not limited to our suburbs. They are not limited to cities like Indianapolis or rural communities like Brown County. They are found in every neighborhood in this state. Laws that create prohibitive barriers to individuals making bail increases the number of barriers towards treatment. Policy that will keep poor people in jail just for being poor, policy like House Bill 1300, will create environments where Hoosiers are vulnerable to relapse and overdose. Bills like House Bill 1300 are a step backwards in the fight to curb the opioid epidemic. The answer is not to criminalize our citizens, but to pass policies that instead reflect compassion and solutions we know will work. We need better from our state legislature. We need to stop House Bill 1300. Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Jessica Savage. I'm a Hoosier Action leader for Columbus, Indiana. I'm a single disabled mother, and I'm 4 years now sober. I'm a domestic violence survivor. I'm here to share my experiences with homelessness and struggles with finding stable housing. In 2018, I left a domestic violence relationship in Ohio and fled with my son Elijah, which is here today. I was forced out of my home and had to choose between homelessness or eviction. After fleeing, I suffered a violent attack from my abuser that nearly killed me. I came to Indiana with my son, was solaced, and referred to a domestic violence shelter here. After 10 days, they took my child from me, DCS. They accused me of being a drug addict because of my neck surgery meds. It was traumatic, not only for me, but for my son. I was homeless for 6 months. Homeless shelters, sleeping under bridges, in dark areas was not safe for a woman to be. The only way I got through being persistent was thinking of my child and applying every single apartment I possibly could find. Some of the waiting lists are up to 4 years. Finally, I was able to get help with rapid rehousing from Human Services and help with the Community Engagement Center. I'm so proud of myself today, but it's just way too hard for everyday people to find stable housing. Once I did find stable housing, I had to fight every day to ensure that it was habitable. I've dealt with pest issues for years, but there's no pathways to hold my landlords or property managers accountable. So I had to deal with it at my own expense. And never missing rent for 3 years, they tried to evict me. I thought I was going to relive the same situation that we just left. If I got evicted, I would lose my son all over again, and my home. I would have been back on the streets, an eviction on my record. Once you have an eviction in this state, there is no way to find housing. He and I both are traumatized. My son is suffering severe nightmares and night terrors over this situation. I know I'm not the only one who's been through this. In our community, I'm still watching our families suffer. It tears me apart. Our state criminalizes poverty. Whether it's homelessness or our criminal justice system, this tears our families apart. I know for the first hand, because my own experience, sitting in a jail for 4 months on a first-time offense, and after taking a plea deal for 2 weeks, on a cash bail, I couldn't post bail. I wasn't getting the medical attention I needed, which I still suffer from today. This does not keep families safe. Families need stable housing, not to be locked up for being poor. Our legislators haven't done enough in this session to protect our families. It's too easy for landlords to bully, intimidate, and control because the laws in the state give big corporate landlords the upper hand. House Bill 1214 just passed, but this is just a stepping stone in the right direction to help Hoosiers keep a roof over our heads. But still, we have a very long way to go to get fully address our state eviction crisis. Senate Bill 230 and 233 were good bills, but they would have given Hoosier tenants basic protection over the states already have. Indiana is #1 in the state for country for evictions since the pandemic, and it saddens my heart. If we're serious about addressing this crisis, we need our legislators to take much larger strides to protect our Hoosier families and our homes. Thank you.
Wow. Wow, those were both very powerful stories, weren't they? Good morning, everyone. My name is Jennifer Smith-Margraf. I'm a Spanish teacher and instructional coach at Oakland Academy in Lafayette. Let me try that again. Is that better? My name is Jennifer Smith-Margraf. I'm a Spanish teacher and instructional coach at Oakland Academy in Lafayette. I'm the mother of a beautiful 3-year-old daughter, and I also serve as the Indiana State Teachers Association Vice President, which is why I'm today here wearing my Red for Ed. With the exception of Senate Bill 2, which provided for full funding for students attending either virtually or in person due to the continuing COVID-19 pandemic, this session has been an absolute attack on public education and public school educators. We had House Bill 1182, which would have required that all school board candidates declare a party affiliation and would have brought divisive national politics to our local school board races. There is House Bill 1072, which would force school corporations to share referendum money with the charter schools within their boundaries. And there is Senate Bill 17, which would allow for the banning of books, even though the First Amendment is one of our most sacred ideals. But most insidious of all is House Bill 1134. Even in its amended form, this bill contains a list of so-called divisive concepts that cannot be promoted. This list seeks to keep educators from having the ability to have honest conversations with their students about race, sex discrimination, and LGBTQ+ issues. This bill also seeks to limit the ability to implement social-emotional learning, a deeply studied and proven technique to support our students as they navigate mental health challenges which have only been exacerbated by the pandemic. As currently written, the bill would force educators to limit how they interact with students on a daily basis in their classrooms or face complaints from parents that could potentially lead to license revocation. Legally, ongoing or recurring consultation, which is how the bill is written, means that a teacher cannot speak to a student more than once on a mental health-related issue or face ramifications. Imagine being the educator who's being told by this bill, we don't really want you to get to know your students. Imagine being the student in an Indiana classroom who cannot reach out to an adult they trust a second time on an issue that's facing them. We need to be working together to build a village that encourages all adults to work together to support the children of our communities. It's time to stop the attacks and divisiveness. It's time to come together to prioritize building relationships between students, parents, and educators. It's time to support public education and public educators and not tear us down. It's time to treat us as the professionals that we are and to put Hoosier children first. You can help us do that today by taking a moment to reach out to your senator, whether it's in person, by phone, by email, or somehow through social media, to let them know that you oppose House Bill 1134 and ask them to vote no. We can return to putting Hoosier children first together. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jerica Cooksey, and I am a member of Hoosier Action, and I am a resident of Scott County, Indiana. I am an outreach specialist for Foundations Family Medicine. I am a mom, I am a recovering addict, and I am a person living with HIV. I was picked up on a possession charge in 2015, where I was incarcerated in Clark County Jail. I was there for only 3 days, and within that 3 days' time, I lost my job, my apartment, my vehicle, and my bond was only $500 cash. My family was poor, I was poor. We did not have enough money to get me out of incarceration at the time. And because I did not have the money at the time, I had to end up signing a plea where I sat 9 months in county jail. And when I sat that 9 months, it was very hard for me mentally, knowing that I was going to get out and have nothing left. So I went right back to the same old thing. As soon as I hit the streets, I was right back into addiction. My husband also, James Hall, was incarcerated in 2006, and he got into a fight while he was in jail. That fight got him convicted as a serious violent felon. And today, in 2015, he was picked up on a possession of a syringe charge. When he got booked into jail, they hired his bond, and his bond was even more because he was a serious violent felon. He ended up having to do on a level 6 felony because he did not have the money to pay bail bondsman or a bond. He had to end up doing a year's house arrest of incarceration. This bill, HB 1300, this attack on charitable bail organizations is a direct attack on families just like mine. I hope that you can vote no on this bill. No one should have to be sit in jail just because they are poor. Charitable bail actually helps people and provides services, court reminders, transportation, the court charge hearing dates all the time, and if something gets changed, they will let you know in advance. I think that it would be awful to the families and to the poor community if this bill is voted against. Thank you for letting me share my story today. That's all I have.
Wow. I would like to thank everyone behind us for sharing their stories and being transparent. Whether we grew up in Indy or in the country, all of us are here today because we are everyday Hoosiers who came together because we know our families deserve more. We refuse to be divided. By working together across our differences, Hoosiers families stopped a harmful, predatory lending bill, other bills which undermine our public school system, and attempts and unnecessary red tape to TANF and SNAP. Hoosier families must continue to stand up with and for one another. Call your bill in HB 1134, the bill which undermines our public schools. Thank you.